Hi there, and welcome to the Curious Collective podcast. Conversations designed for the conscious community to bring awareness to those holistic practices to help you live your best life. So, tap into the wisdom and knowledge of our guests to heal, transform, and live as your true soulful self. Hi, everyone. And today we have with us the beautiful Michelle Freeman, and she is from the Nambour Yoga Center. So I'm going to introduce her straight away so she can introduce herself. Michelle, what is it that you do at this current moment, and what is it that makes your heart sing?
Oh, thanks, Katie. Thank you for having me on. So what makes my heart sing probably the most is teaching and sharing and practicing yoga. I've been doing that for about 25 years and still am madly in love with that practice. And I also do a lot of breath work. So I share breath work practices and experiences with people as well. And yeah, just enjoy helping to empower people around being comfortable in their bodies, a little bit more self-aware, and guiding people towards this place where they can get a deeper sense of themselves, really connect to themselves.
I love that. And that coming back to the body, I think, is a theme that's becoming more apparent in society these days is, less head, let's drop into our bodies and learn to connect. And what are some beautiful ways we can connect? Just even those two you've spoken into, the yoga and the breath work. And we've never had a yogi on the podcast. So thank you for being our first. And
First.
what drew you to yoga initially?
So initially, I was searching. I didn't really realize it at the time. I was in my early 20s when I first found yoga, but I was really searching for something that was meaningful, that was going to help me to connect with myself, release stress and anxiety that I carried quite a lot of at that time, and connecting into my body. So for me, yoga ticked every single one of those boxes. It really was a potent experience of being in the body and in the present moment, but also learning how to sort of ride the waves of the different ups and downs you may experience from day to day. So, and there's a really interesting link between the body and our mind and our emotions and things that we hold on to and memories that we store. So I found it really healing to practice yoga during that time to help me really let go of a lot of grief and, like I said, stress and anxiety that I carried quite a lot of at that age. So
And
yeah.
did you dip into a particular style that you were that you liked more?
Yeah, well, gosh, I'm one of those people. I'm a bit of a chameleon. Like, I really like trying everything, and I just thought I got to try everything once,
Yeah.
at least. And so I really tried to study with as many teachers as I could find, and I ended up really diving deeply, and it's the practice I still do today and still teach today, into Ashtanga yoga. And I just loved everything about it, and I felt like it was such a potent and an empowering practice for me at that time. So yeah, but I definitely am well versed in everything from yin yoga, restorative yoga, to Bikram yoga. I, at one point in time, was teaching hot yoga. So yeah, I've just sort of done it all.
And is that Ashtanga yoga the one where there's like men in the Asian countries that are in there like hundreds and they look still like they're 60 because it like slows down the aging process?
It can do that. Yeah. And, even some of my students are remarkably youthful for their age. They inspire me every day. So, yeah, I feel it too in my own practice, but I notice it in my longtime yoga students that there is something to be said for just moving the body every day, connecting with yourself, doing your breath work. And that does seem to slow down the aging process. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And did your interest with the breath work and going deeper with that come from the yoga based principles?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, to me, breath work is an extension of everything that is encompassing yoga, which is not only the physical practice of it, but the philosophy behind it. And breath work is another way to really connect deeper into the subtle body or the energy body. I actually think it's a little bit more, in some ways, a little bit more advanced, you could say, than the physical practice, because it is more subtle and it does require you to really get present and drop into your body straight away without using distractions or having any, any structure around it other than just listening to your breath and feeling your breath. And maybe there's a technique you apply to the breath, but in essence, it really is your breath that you're tapping into. So it's very powerful.
And a potent medicine we were born with.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the one thing that we cannot live without. You can live without food and water for short periods of time, but breath, maybe a couple of minutes, most people. So it's really the key to longevity and health and well-being, I believe.
And I had a yogi once tell me that if you were only given a certain prescription of breaths when you were born, and that was it until you left, transition to the next, you might pay more attention to the way you're breathing or how long your breath is or something like that. So I found that quite profound, and it stuck with me, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. If only we knew, the power behind it. So, yeah.
So what got you into being where you are today? Like, what was the start of your journey to creating this community up there in Nambour and bringing people into this world?
Oh, beautiful question. Thanks for that, Katie. I really love people. I love working with people. I love, if I have any skills or knowledge to share that can help people, I'm really more than happy to share it. I am one of those people that would do what I do for free as a living. I'm blessed to be able to make a living off of it, but I would do it even if I wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I just love sharing, and I love watching the changes that the transformations that happen when people do commit to a yoga practice or a breathwork practice, something that has that introspective quality. It's really powerful for people. It helps them so much with not just their physical body, but I would say the main thing I hear people comment on is like helping them to deal with stress. They just have an outlet to release stress, a place to put it, so to speak. So that's really important, because a lot of us carry so much stress around. I know I do. I find myself frequently throughout the day having to drop my shoulders because I got my shoulders crunched up around my neck, because that's why I carry my tension. So if you don't have a practice that gets you to pause and reflect and actually feel like what you're doing in your body, it's hard to make changes. You
just keep going in that repetitive cycle, and it keeps you stuck.
Yeah, it's just everything is automatic, and you just do whatever you've been conditioned to do.
Yeah.
And those grooves that you create for yourself keep getting more and more sort of deep. And the longer you go with those patterns, the harder it is to break out of them. So it's never too late to start. However, you want to start somewhere. You want to start as soon as possible if you're someone who wants to really be conscious, and not just how you are in your body, but how you are in your life, I would say. And that's really what yoga is pointing people towards.
And aware and able to pick up your own patterns, I think is a real gift, to go, seeing something in someone else and going, that's actually me. I'm doing that.
Yes. Yeah.
And that practice can do that, like make your awareness a lot clearer. There's a lot more clarity, I find, when you've got the practice that you're referring to through your work.
Yeah, you're more aware, you're more interested in doing work on yourself to show up in your life in whatever way you're choosing to. But the key is that you're making a choice. You're making a choice in how you show up. So you're not just showing up, again, the way that is automatic, without any kind of conscious questioning behind it. So a good example of that is, if you're a person who tends to complain a lot, you even in your head, if you just kind of like, oh, well, that's crap, or, like, why did she have to say that? We get in our heads a lot like that with a bit of complaining. And that's sort of a vibration. There's a vibration to that energy. And if you keep focusing on that, you kind of keep manifesting more of it. So if you can shift that story around, of instead of complaining about stuff all the time, asking the question of, what is it that I need to accept right now in my life? So you start to recognize there may be things you can't change. And so maybe finding peace within yourself is about acceptance. And if there are things that you can change, you could focus on the change versus the complain.
Yeah.
So you just focus on, okay, I'm not happy right now in my relationship. Okay, so how do I see that moving forward? Do I want to work on the relationship that I'm in, or do I actually need to separate from this relationship and we both go our separate ways? So, you have to think of the solutions. I think more so than the problems to move forward in life.
Yeah, 100%. I find I even do that with my children, even on the basic level of these socks feel uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, I acknowledge those socks feel uncomfortable. What can we do about it? There's these other socks, or you could go without socks. Just a small example, but seeing that there are other options, or flipping the perspective to look at it from a different angle, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to do that. Yeah. And I think without having some sort of practice that gets you to push pause on life and reflect like that, it's real tricky that just happens to come into your day, because we get real busy. I know for myself, I get very busy and just in my head and, going from A to B and forgetting to pause. So I really appreciate yoga in my life for creating that pause for me. So that is what I love sharing.
Do you feel from your yogic studies that the masculine and feminine, like that do that you're talking about, and then that pause and reflect and sit and be, the masculine and feminine plays a big part, and people being able to acknowledge that to then balance it?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. Because masculine and feminine energies, of course, are playing out in every aspect of our life. And the masculine and feminine is really these polarities that come together and work together in harmony, ideally. So in a yoga practice or a breathwork practice, there's certain breathing exercises that can have more of a masculine tone versus a feminine tone. So, you can use these practices to invite in more of what you need, more of maybe what you're lacking. So if you're lacking masculine energy in your life, you can do practices that help you to bring that in, and vice versa. If you're lacking the feminine, you can bring the feminine side in. And I really believe you can do that in just about any yoga practice. I think it's just the way you practice it. It's not so much the sequence of poses or all the details of what's involved in the methodology behind the practice. It's sort of, how do you show up in your body?
And setting that intention.
Yes. Yeah. And setting the intention. Yeah. So how do you show up? And we often need, of course, the thing that we're less habitually attracted to. So, if you're really attracted to more of that feminine, super soft, slow, very gentle, nurturing, you might actually benefit from a little bit more of a masculine energy in a practice that's maybe a bit more dynamic. Maybe it's a little bit more yang in its nature. So I would say that there's no one practice fits all, that it's just really recognizing that you can use these practices to balance yourself out no matter what end of that polarity you're starting from. Yeah.
I love that. I love what you've just shared. So important, and something that I know, me 2 years ago didn't even know about, but something that is constantly in my awareness now. Do you find some people that come to your classes that might be new to this world and being very curious about it all, when you say at the start, like, bring an intention or set an intention for the practice, that they really struggle to do that? And what advice would you have for someone that isn't sure yet?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I do often give my students a chance to set an intention. And I think that's really powerful because when we, again, get more aware about what it is that we want to call in, what we want to invite into our lives, then we start to put this energy out into that field and attract it more and more and more. So it's just that self-awareness piece. I often give my students a suggestion that if they can't think of something, that self-love is a really good place to start. So just bringing in and inviting in an intention of self-love. So here I am on my yoga mat or my meditation cushion. This is about self-love for me. This is about me connecting with myself and really honoring the soul that lives inside of me. So that's very powerful.
I can feel it through my body now.
You could stop right there. You could just use that intention every day. More people need self-love.
They really do. And I think a lot of the things I've been helping clients with always comes back to that, inability to connect with others. That's because you're not connecting with yourself. Like all these things that play out, there's like this beautiful self-love in front of us that we can always dip into, right? And embody. So if listeners were wanting to try like different styles of yoga or even to tap into the amazing world of breath work, what advice would you have for those that are curious, standing at the door, peeping in, that haven't yet stepped into this arena?
Yeah, I think just getting started and being okay with not feeling, remembering that it's not about the performance of yoga or breath work, that it's really an inner journey. So walking in, whether you go to a class somewhere or you do something online, just walking into that situation, accepting yourself as you are, I think is really important. And maybe inviting yourself into a space of openness so that you have a capacity to learn and take stuff in. So if your cup is sort of full with a whole bunch of other stuff, there's no room to put anything new in there. So you kind of have to come in with an empty cup. You kind of have to leave expectations at the door and come in with acceptance for yourself, compassion for yourself, and openness. And that would be my number one suggestion, is just to really bring those intentions into your class or, your exposure. And then as you go along the journey, keeping those intentions with you, because you'll always need them. There's going to be tough days sometimes to connect to the body. So, remembering to be really accepting and loving of yourself, especially if you have a tough day. So I would say that's the number one thing, and everything else falls into place. It's, our body loves to be challenged. Our bodies love to move. Our bodies really love to adapt to things. So, if you can't touch your toes straight away in a yoga class, it's totally normal. Hardly anyone can. You build up to it over time, and your body actually will appreciate you taking the time and giving yourself the love and the care to go through that journey, that process of opening your body up or strengthening your body, whatever it is,
I love that. And then looking back and reflecting on how far you've come since you stepped into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You really can transform. And again, it's never too late to start. You can start anytime. But I love students who start in their 70s.
Oh, I love that.
Really devote themselves to it and just have these massive breakthroughs, not just in the body, but in their personal lives as well, just having different insights and realizations. And, you get to that point in your life and you kind of realize like, oh, I don't have forever, and so you start to take your time and your investments and things a little bit more seriously. And I find a lot of people at that stage get attracted to yoga or breath work and find it really beneficial. So
just to bring themselves back home to here.
Yeah. Imagine, if you spend a whole lifetime giving to everybody else, that gets depleting after a while. And also you might be showing up in life not the most kind and beautiful version of yourself as you could if you haven't been connecting with yourself regularly and doing these practices to learn how to release things and accept things and let things go so that they don't build up in your system. you
And
know.
that draws back to your advice from earlier that was about being open and aware and observing. I mean, a lot of those are the divine qualities of the heart, and the heart, that giving and receiving instead of just giving your whole life. So you might be able to open your heart through the yoga practice or the breath work and just have who knows what epiphanies as the journey unravels.
I would say that for me, that would be a goal, like to
Mm.
open the heart, connect to the heart. And as a teacher, the way I show up is really trying to facilitate an opportunity for people to connect to their hearts. And
Mm.
it's very powerful when people drop into that, because some of us, myself included, many years of numbing, many years of being in my head, of being closed and protected around the heart. So the healing comes when we connect with our hearts, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know that there are so many golden nuggets in there for all of the listeners. Is there anything else that you feel called to share with us before we part ways?
Just really want to thank you for having me
Mm.
on the podcast. And I hope the listeners out there got some benefit from it, and, really inspire and encourage you guys to just start. So if you're interested in yoga, meditation, just start somewhere and just trust the process and trust where it leads you.
I love that you just said trust the process. Trust is my word of the week.
Oh,
Just
nice.
trust. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your time. And our listeners, if you want to find out more about Michelle, all of her details will be in the blurb of wherever this podcast is posted. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.